Welcome to Heart Home Community's most recent Baldwinsville Community Update. I'm your host, Shelley Hoffman. We hope you enjoy the show and find it very informative. Hey everybody, it's Shelley Hoffman, and I'm here with Chief Mike Lefancheck with our February update of what's going on in the village of Baldwinsville. How you doing today, Chief?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you. I'm a little nervous at how much snow we're supposed to get today. I've heard from here to there, so someone's going to teach me to use my snow blower today. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I know the snow's coming down. I think it's going to be a good opportunity for us to just remind people to drive a little slower and be a little extra careful when you're out on the roads, and plan a little bit extra time to get where you need to get to. If something normally takes you 15 or 20 minutes, it's probably going to take you, half that time again to get where you're going. So just plan ahead for those types of things. We don't want to have to investigate any accidents. Right?
Sometimes it's nice to see a police officer show up at your door. It knows that they're doing their job. They're on track. That community police, that we always talk about how nice everybody is. I just wanted to test that out myself this weekend, Chief. And that may or may not be why I backed into a FedEx truck. I'm just.
Well, I hope you got good service when an officer showed up there to investigate that.
It was an interesting way to start my Saturday for sure. So other than my big accident on East Oneida Street this past weekend, what else has been going on in the village?
Well, I hate to sound like a broken record of days gone by, but as I was talking to Lieutenant Mike Lockwood towards the end of last week, and I said, hey, Monday I'm going to be on with Shelley, and I was talking with a couple officers this morning and things, because I always like to chat with people. Lieutenant says to me, you've been looking at the daily crime bulletins every day that here in Onondaga County, we have a crime analysis center, and they put out a daily crime bulletin. I said, yeah. And Mike Lockwood, he reviews those very closely. And he goes, are you looking at the stolen cars? He said, because used to be that almost all the stolen cars came out of the city of Syracuse, and that's where all that stuff was going on. He goes, but that's not the case now. He goes, there's a lot of stuff that's happening mostly out in the county, in the suburbs. And certainly we're not immune to that. And Shelley, probably since one of the very first times you and I started talking about a year ago in doing these updates, and back then it was weekly and now it's monthly, I've been harping and begging and cajoling and doing whatever I can for people to lock their car doors. And then one of the officers this morning said, if you could get people not to keep their spare key in their car, that would be helpful to us too. And leave their car door unlocked, because inevitably what happens is somebody goes in there, finds the key, and then steals the car. And then we're investigating a stolen vehicle that, might turn up a few days later, and it might be burned out, or it might be damaged, or something happens. And I know this is something regularly that I've brought up and talked about, but it's probably going to be one of those things that I hope maybe somebody new listens to this and says, geez, yeah, I should keep my car unlocked and go from there. And I know it's kind of a little bit of a pain sometimes, but it's really important, because it will help keep you from becoming victimized. And really that's the truth. It's very, very rare do we have an incident where somebody smashes a window and steals something out of a vehicle, unless there's a purse or something valuable that's in plain view. But otherwise, we just don't get those situations. So if people could lock their doors, I couldn't be more appreciative of that.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story, because, since one of the first times you've mentioned that, I told my son, you have to when you come to my house in the village, you have to bring your car keys in, lock your doors, leave them in the kitchen. And he struggled because that wasn't a habit for him. Sure. The other morning when it snowed, I took his car key, unlocked his car, moved it into the second part of my garage, and then I left for work. And the girls said it was hilarious when he came down and did not see his car in the driveway, because he thought for sure that he accidentally left his keys in there and someone took it. And he was scared to death to tell me, but it was just safely in the garage.
Oh, that's good. That's good. But unfortunately, we've had some situations where people have come out and they look and they're like, where's my car? And their mother hasn't moved it. Somebody not related to them has taken it for a joyride. And that's a real issue for us. And, really, that's one of the things that people can do to really help improve their quality of life, the quality of life in the community, and to help keep the crime rate low, is just simply lock your car doors. And I mean that sincerely.
Yeah.
That's a real help that people always say, how can we help the police? How can we help the community? That's really a great way to help the community.
And I think it's that, I talk to a lot of people that are new to Baldwinsville, been here their whole lives. And, the locking the door, that's a real struggle sometimes for them to get past because they grew up here not locking anything. But it's just a different world, whether it's Baldwinsville, Liverpool, Cicero. It's not just a Beeville problem, but it's not a city problem anymore. Like you said, it's happening here as well.
Yeah, and to your point about homes and things, I know folks, and certainly not going to mention streets, or who have told me that they don't even have a key for their house. They don't even know where one exists. Especially if they're in one of the sections that was built back in the 1800s and things. They just feel as though we live in a safe place, and the house has never been locked, and we've lived in this home since 1969 or something. And never had an issue. And I've had those conversations with people, even somewhat recently. And I remember I was on the phone with somebody 3 months ago, and that kind of conversation came up, and they were like, Mike, we don't even have keys for our house. And I'm like, God, well, maybe you could call Bellows or somebody and work on that, and things. So,
yeah. We get it in my industry. We'll say we need a key for the lockbox to put on the front door. And they say, oh, we don't have keys. We never lock the door. And we're like, well, we are going to lock your door because you're having strangers come with appointments. And they have to go get either Bellows to get a key made, or they have to search through something to find that key. So to your point, we see that as well.
Yeah.
So
and I've had some people ask about, obviously with COVID, and the vaccine and the officers, and obviously our staff became eligible here under 1B, the plan, and very happy to report that all the officers here that indicated who were interested in receiving the vaccine, we've all had our first round of vaccination. So that's a good thing for us, including our support staff here who are eligible. So I look forward to our staff being vaccinated fully here throughout the month of February. And I had my first vaccine back 3 weeks ago, and my arm hurt, but I didn't suffer any other effects. And no, I mean,
I heard it's bad.
Yeah, no, it definitely hurt for 2-3 days. Like literally woke me up at night when I rolled over on my left side. I'm like, I guess I'll sleep on the other shoulder. So other arm, but other than that, knock on wood, I didn't suffer any other ill effects. But obviously, we're still following all guidelines: masking, gloving, face shields, all those types of things when appropriate. And we're going to continue to do that. This just provides, hopefully, a layer of safety and security for our staff that are dealing with folks, and it's just the first part of the whole vaccination process for the community at large. And I can't say enough about the process down there at the War Memorial that the county health department and emergency management that they've got set up down there. That was a great job. And then last weekend I took my parents to the fairgrounds for their first shots. Obviously they're over 65 and are eligible, and again, very smooth process down there, and so that's working well. So that's where we are with that. But I did have a couple people just in passing. I stopped at the hardware store. I'm doing some painting at home, and that's like the social club for adults now, and in town, and people talk and stop and ask, and they said, geez, did you guys get shots? What's going on there? So, and I was surprised, but it was nice to hear people were actually concerned and wondering about that. So I just wanted to pass that along to folks as well.
No, and they do appreciate. I know the mayor had mentioned, might have been last week, that you had gone down. You were either getting or going to get your shot, or had gotten your shot, and that the police department was on that list. So that's good. I think it's just going to be, this process. I don't even know where I fall, because obviously I'm under 65 still, and healthy, and I just figure I'll wait until they tell me that it's my time to get it. But it's nice to know the first responders that, like your parents, the people in the nursing homes, that they're qualifying and they're able to get in for them.
Yeah, and so far, I was very fortunate to get appointments for my parents and myself, and the officers here were able to get in as well for the process down at the War Memorial and different places. So that's where we are with that. So right now we're just trying to move forward with with those processes. And obviously, with wintertime here, uh, we're in our wintertime mode, which is a little bit different than the summertime, only because we still have property checks. And but I've noticed that we don't have the number of property checks with people going away this year that we have in years past. More people are staying local, staying close to home, just because they don't know what might be going on in other parts of the country, and maybe they just feel a little bit safer here, being closer to their family network and friends and doctors and things. So all
Yeah.
those things are still ongoing, and just to remind people, we're still doing one thing. We are still doing our car seat installations, infant car seats. I would just feel terrible should there ever be a situation where a child got injured because the seat wasn't installed properly. So, we provide our officers with gloves and masks and face shields and a full gown if need be, so we can get a seat installed. So if we've got a young family that may be expecting and can't get the seat installed properly, and I can tell you from firsthand knowledge from when my children were infants, which was quite some time ago because my youngest is 22. But I had one of the officers here install the child seats. Corey Coakley did it. And it's a 4-day school our officers go to install
Wow.
those seats properly. It's not like they go for one day. It's a lengthy process because to get them installed properly, it takes some learning, and it's a learned skill, and they have to demonstrate that they can actually do it in a proper fashion. And it's not one of those schools that you just show up to and you go through the motions and you get a certificate. You actually have to demonstrate your proficiency at it, and it's not simple. But we have some officers here that have been through the school that are trained, and so we're still offering that service. And you can just call the police department Monday through Friday, 635-3131 to get that scheduled if you need to. Especially if you're a village resident and you've got a young child, we'll help you out with that as much as we can. So
well, and that's good to hear, because I remember we've talked about that before, and I can't remember if I told you the story of Jordan actually went sideways because we tried to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
So I will never try and put a seatbelt in or a car seat in by myself anymore, because as a first time mom, that was panicky. You look over and your kid's laying sideways in the car seat.
And you think you're doing the right thing, but
yeah.
I just know I can tell you that the officers, they literally climb on top of these seats with both knees to get the seat belted in. I mean, it's really, when you watch them do it, it's really something to see what they do. And it's a lengthy process, and it takes them a little while. It's not a 5-minute job, I can tell you that. It takes some time. So if you live in a village and you need a seat installed, give us a call, and we'll do what we can to help you out.
Well, what was nice when I first moved to the village was, I think one was at an Allstate office, but you did seatbelt checks. So even somebody who had just, the child was a little bit older, they were going from the carrier seat to a booster seat, or just when they switched vehicles. It was nice. I mean, obviously with COVID, you can't really do those stations right now, so it has to be an appointment. But right. It will be nice when we get back to where, you guys can set up those seatbelt checks that you had done before.
Yeah, we did that right over there with Stephen Huntsberger and his agency. Right there behind the new O'Reilly's Auto Parts. He's down there right in front of the Sports Bowl, and right next to Brian's One Day Dry Cleaning, and next to the hardware store. And he partnered with us, and we had some other agencies and other technicians help us out with that, and that was a big success. And again, goes to the heart of our community policing efforts, and that's something that we do really hope to get back involved with. We obviously support the partnership with the local business community and private citizens, and look forward to being able to do those things again. Whether we're going to be able to do them in 2021, I don't know, but that's certainly something that once we can, it's going to be a really good feeling to be back involved in doing those types of things.
No, I think we all look forward to that. So other than the big crash on East Oneida Street on Saturday, has anything else happened in the village since we last spoke?
We still are dealing with on a regular basis our calls for service involving mental health crises. And one of the things I've done over the last month is we've signed a memorandum of understanding with Liberty Resources. So now Liberty Resources provides uh, uh, attention and treatment and intervention, shall I say, to individuals that are suffering from a mental health crisis. So if our officers show up on a scene and we've got an individual that is suffering from some mental health issues, but they're not, they haven't ingested drugs or they haven't cut themselves to the point where we have to take them into custody, protective custody, and take them to the hospital for their own safety. Our staff now can reach out to Liberty Resources. They will send a team of people to that location. Our officers will do a safe handoff, so to speak, and really provide our residents with a level of care that wasn't available before. And now a trained mental health professional will be able to provide hopefully some intervention and some help to those folks. And if they end up needing some greater treatment, that can be arranged for them. But we think that's going to be an excellent resource for our staff and for those individuals in the community that when we deal with them are in struggle right at that point in time. And for whatever reason, whether it be, home life, work life, a combination of all those things, whatever the situation might be that, our staff comes upon those folks. Hopefully, with this partnership, we can just provide that much better service to that segment of the population.
Was that something when we talked in January last month? There was obviously something that was being discussed as far as mental health. So was this process something you were in place and working on, or did it kind of come a little bit quicker or get developed because of the struggles with COVID and what people are having with mental health?
Well, Liberty Resources, they've reached out to myself and other chiefs in Onondaga County to let us know that they were ramping up this service and wanted to know if we wanted to be involved. And obviously, it wasn't going to cost anything, and it doesn't impact income levels or anything like that for the people involved. Obviously, they'll take the folks' insurance information and bill them, but there's not a charge to the residents that we might have to call for. So we just felt here that this was going to be a win-win for us, that if we partner with them, I know the school district has utilized Liberty Resources with some of their counseling needs and things along those lines. So for us, this just looked like a great opportunity to provide as much service as we can for folks that are in crisis at this time. And we've all read a lot of articles. It's been well versed out there with COVID and the feeling of isolationism and the lack of social opportunities to do things. And now, especially in the wintertime, I even know myself from this weekend. I left work on Friday and went home, and I spent the weekend inside doing some painting and things. And by yesterday afternoon, about 3:00, I'm like, okay, I got to get out of the house. And I went over and took some stuff, picked up a few things that my parents needed, dropped those off real quick at their apartment, and ran and grabbed something to eat, and then came home and just wanted to get outside. But a lot of folks don't have that opportunity just to even get outside, and it's every day. For me, it was the weekend. Otherwise, I'm coming to work, and some folks are either working from home or with cutbacks, maybe if employment isn't full time, it's part time, or they're seeking employment. So there's a lot of things happening with folks, and we're sensitive to that, and just want to be able to provide the best service we can when we're on those calls.
Well, it's another example of you guys are dedicated to the community, because it's not you recognize the fact that having somebody with that special need, you need somebody that has that professional skill and that training, and you guys get it to a point, but there's always more levels, that go beyond what your training would be. So I think that's great. That's great that the village is taking that opportunity.
And if you look at, some of obviously the protests that have occurred over the summer in various places, and some of the concepts involving, policing and making policing better, they've talked about trained mental health professionals responding to these types of calls, and sometimes people advocate in place of police. And I think this system that we're coming upon now is a good starting point for us. And It's going to allow our officers, and I think I've mentioned many times in the past, we've got a number of officers that are trained in what's referred to as CIT, crisis intervention techniques. And so our staff hopefully can get there, diffuse the situation, because sometimes individuals either maybe they are violent, or there's a threat that they might become violent, or a concern they could become violent. And we can hopefully stabilize the situation, get a hold of Liberty Resources, have their mental health professionals get there on scene. Our staff's going to stay until the situation is safe for them to leave, and then do what's kind of referred to as a safe handoff, so to speak, from our staff to theirs. And then hopefully they'll take the issue from there. And the end result, in our mind, would be a successful one if we never have to deal with those folks again in that particular situation, because then they get into whatever treatment program is needed for them, whether it be some counseling, whether it be a referral to a physician for a medication need, or a whole host of other things. Now, we know that's not always the case in that situation. We might then have to go back there. But this, again, we just think that if you look at what people are talking about, and reforming police, and changing the way you do business, this is just an added tool for us to provide a better level of service, and hopefully one that will reduce violent encounters, not just here, but all over.
No, I agree. Going back to when we started a year ago, there's so many changes and things that have come out of COVID and the pandemic and isolation. And a lot of it is good. A lot of it is things that maybe we should have been doing, a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but we never thought about it. Once the need became greater, then you think outside the box, and you add the resources and the tools that we need. So
yeah.
Great.
Yeah. As awful as this has been, obviously there's some things that we realized that, hey, to your point, this probably should have been going on, and it's good for us to do these things. So, and then the other issue I wanted to talk about is it's not very rare that there's a week or so that goes by that I don't have someone reach out to me and ask, how do I get into law enforcement, or how do I become a police officer? Are you hiring, or how's this process work? And I just thought I might talk about our hiring process and how we go through that, because obviously with Officer Null's retirement, we did have an individual that we had hired, but after 3 days of working here, he had put himself through the police academy, phase 1. He kind of came to the decision that this was not the career path for him. And, as disappointing as that was for us, because we invested, as you're going to hear, a lot of time, energy, and effort into this individual's hiring process and what goes into that. I give the person a lot of credit, because, this career isn't for everyone. Selling real estate isn't for everyone. Everyone has their own little niche, and you just got to find that. And sometimes when you're 21 or 22, what you think is your niche isn't your niche until you actually jump both feet into it. But our hiring process, first off, it starts with, you have to take the civil service test for a police officer. That's a statewide exam, and it's administered by Onondaga County. And then you have to get yourself onto that list. So you have to score at least 70 or above. Following that, you have to go down and you have to pass a physical agility exam. Now, generally what happens there is Onondaga County will notify everyone, hey, you passed the test, you got to show up at the Y and take your physical agility. About half the people that pass the test, they don't show up to take their physical agility, which means they're automatically off the list. Okay. Of the half that does show up, half of those fail it. So right there, that reduces the number of eligible candidates.
Can I ask real quick, Chief, what does that involve? What does the agility test involve?
Sure, you have to run, I think, a mile and a half. And the track at the Y is kind of unique. It's a small banked track. So you have to run like 36 laps around it or something. It's not like the track at Baker where you'd run, 6 times around to get a mile and a half. And you have to stay in the second lane or above. And if your foot touches the line, you're DQ'd. And there's push-ups, there's sit-ups, and there might be something else in there. I don't exactly recall, but I can just tell you that half the people that take it fail it. Okay. So just because they're not prepared. And so then that gets you actually onto the list. And then we send you a canvas letter. And then we might bring you in for what we refer to as a pre-screening interview. So on that particular occasion, and obviously things have changed with COVID, we can't bring in 40 or 50 people at the same time. But we'll give you a questionnaire, and there's about 20 questions on there, and that kind of gets a feel for us to kind of take a look. Do you have a military history? Have you been in the military? Have you been to college? You know, what's your education like? We're going to ask you what's your drug usage like? Have you been arrested? Those types of things, because we just want to know the answers to those things. And we're very honest with folks. And at the end, they sign this questionnaire in front of an officer and swear to it under the penalty of perjury. So if later on in the background process we come back and we find something that is not accurate, they're automatically DQ'd because they've lied to us. And normally what happens is we've got about 40 or 50 people in our room next door, and I get up in front of this group of people and I give them my spiel and I talk about the Baldwinsville Police and what we stand for. And I talk for about 5 minutes, and at the end of it I say, I know you've all filled out your packet and turned it in to our police clerk up here, but after my talk, if there's anything you need to change to ensure its accuracy, you need to do that now, because if not, you're going to be DQ'd out of the process. Of the 50 people, there's normally about 15 or 20 that get up and make a beeline to our police clerk for her to hand back their packets so they can add on some things that maybe they didn't explain fully. So then we'll talk to them, and then if they make it through that, we'll continue on with them in the process. Once they do a background, once they get to the background stage, the background consists of, we've got a questionnaire they're going to fill out. It's about 20 or 25 pages long. We normally give them a week to 10 days to do it because it's not something that we're just going to hand you and you're going to get done in 15 minutes. They come back and their background's assigned to an investigator, normally one of our sergeants or senior officers, who will sit down with the candidate, review their packet with them, ensure its accuracy. And then we're going to start talking to coworkers, neighbors, references that they give, past employers, past schools to find out their discipline record in schools. Every time we talk to a reference or a neighbor, Jesus, is there someone else that we know that we could talk to about this individual? And we do a very, very thorough background. I can tell you that the last 2 or 3 people that we started with in this process, they didn't make it out of day one on our background process. So our goal is to find the right candidate for Baldwinsville. Then once, let's say all the references check out and all that stuff works, the officer types up a background report. We send the candidate to a polygraph exam. We have a polygraphist who's actually a retired police officer from a large department here in Onondaga County, and we've been utilizing him for many years. And he does them for us, and he does a very good job and asks some very difficult and tough questions and very personal questions, and you got to answer them. And if they're not truthful, he's going to have an idea of knowing that and going to delve a little bit further. And then the other thing we do is we have the candidate meet with a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and we do a full mental health evaluation on them. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing we do. And the individual that we do for the psychiatry exam actually did my psychological when I came on the job 33 and a half years ago. So he's been doing it for a little while. And he does a very good, solid report as well. And then if they make it to that, then they have to go take the physical exam. And I just got a text the other day from someone I know who said, geez, is eyesight a make or break type of thing for someone to get on the job? And I said, yeah, it is. And a lot of people have to go get LASIK surgery or something else to pass the eye exam. And I sent, I think her son was interested in possibly getting into law enforcement. And so I sent her what the physical fitness standards are for the eyes. Because it sounded like his eyesight wasn't going to be able to qualify right now. So that's just something to be familiar with as well. That we had a candidate a few years ago who was working her way through the process and went down and failed the physical because of her eyesight, and so it bounced her out of the hiring process. She's got to go and get that taken care of, and then go through the whole process all over again. So it is a lengthy process, and from the point in time you take the civil service test, you don't even get your results for probably 4 months just off the civil service test. So it's a long process, and some people sit on that civil service list for several years before they get canvassed. Because then remember, in New York State, there's a rule of three, so we have to hire from the top three people on the list. We just can't say, oh, so and so got a 70, they're a good candidate, let's hire them. If there's 300 people ahead of them on the list, we can't do that.
So if you have the three people, but they don't make it past the physical, then you can go to the next person on the list that's a little bit lower, correct? So you go down and the process starts all over?
Correct. But the thing is, if someone doesn't make it through our background, that doesn't knock them off the list necessarily. So they're not disqualified off the list, depending upon what's in their background. If it's something terribly egregious, we can petition for the Commissioner of Civil Service to remove them. But that's not an easy process, nor should it be. So most of the time, we can't eliminate people off the civil service list. But there's issues in someone's background that we just feel, they're not a good candidate at this point in time for us, whether it be, they've had some criminal history that's recent, whether they've got some very serious financial difficulties in their life that, recent bankruptcy and things along those lines that compromise that individual, and various things that have gone on. I might even mention one time we had a candidate that I was actually doing his background because we were kind of short-staffed, and we were doing a number of backgrounds. And part of the background process when you fill out your packet is you have to turn in your last 3 years of tax returns to us. And I kept asking this person, well, how come I don't have your tax returns? And after about 2-3 weeks of me working and talking to some different people, I'm like, this is crazy. Me asking this guy for his tax returns. Like, finally, he just admitted he hadn't filed taxes in the last 5 years. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, who doesn't file taxes? I didn't even know you could do that. So obviously we didn't hire him. But these are the types of things. And, he's sitting right here in my office, and I'm like, where are your tax returns? Like, why do I not have them? And stuff. So it's a lengthy process that we go through. But, I'm going to be very honest. Whenever we're going through this process, when I took over as chief, Joe Saraceni was the mayor, and he appointed me, and I greatly appreciated all the confidence he showed in me. And we had a village board member, Rick Presley, on the board, and Rick was our chairman of the Public Safety Committee. And Rick had been on the board for a long time, and I greatly valued his friendship and his guidance and his mentorship to me. And Rick always had the statement, I'd rather keep the position vacant than lower our standards. And that's kind of my guiding philosophy. Whenever we're going through the hiring process, his voice is in my mind. And he's not on the board any longer, but I actually just sent him a card the other day, just telling him I was thinking of him and wishing him well. But I always keep that thought process in my mind. And that's what I tell our staff is, look, we've got a standard that we, our community expects from a Baldwinsville police officer. That's what we're going to hire to. So that's how I approach our hiring process.
Well, that's a good way to end up the whole segment about how the hiring process itself, because even if somebody makes it through all that, you're looking for that fit for that community policing as well, which is key. And obviously I was joking about it earlier, but it is true. There's always, people that can't get along in society. It's just the way that it is, or they have preconceived notions. But I'm in the village a lot. I walk around a lot, and it's just there's not this stress when you see a police officer coming down the street. They get out of their car and start walking towards you. There's not this stress of, unless you did something wrong, right? Even when you do something wrong, you just assume they're going to be nice and forgive you. but that is important. So it's nice to know that you're just not filling the hole with anybody, just so that you have a body on the force.
And I know, and I might have said this before, and I think I did in one of our talks many months ago. And people might call me a liar, but I can assure you that I am not. It is not uncommon. And I would say it's probably 80 to 85 or 90% of the time. Not that we've had anyone in here in the last year really because of COVID, but prior to that, when we arrest someone, when they're leaving our booking room, it is the majority of the time they actually shake our officer's hand and say thank you to the officer. Obviously not now with COVID and things, but most of the time they will thank our staff and stick out their hand and say thanks, just because of the way they've been treated when, and here they are under arrest, whether for DWI or larceny or a domestic situation, wherever it might be. Now you're going to have those situations where people are unhappy with us, and I get it. We're dealing with folks on probably one of the worst days of their life, and hopefully we're not going to see them in that terrible state again. But for the most part, our people thank our staff for just because of the way they were treated, and it's just the way it is. So, to your point, we're a small department. I can't offer everything that like a sheriff's office or a city police department. We don't have canine units. We don't have a detective bureau. We don't have boats to be on the river with or a helicopter to fly. But what we can offer is a unique experience. You're going to be a police officer here in this village where there's a lot of great residents here. People support the organization. It's a great school district. It's a great place to live. People are in Baldwinsville because they want to live here. They enjoy the community. And we're going to provide you with a lot of training. We're going to let you work your cases from start to finish. And hopefully you're going to spend 20 years here and make an impact and make a difference in the community. Our school resource officer program, community outreach, some of the things we do, our bike patrol, our foot patrol, those are things that you're going to be able to interact with the community in a way that you might not be able to interact in other places. That's our selling point, and that's the kind of person we're looking for.
Well, I appreciate it. And I know the village appreciates it too. And that process, I think most of us knew about the test, most of us knew about the fitness, but those other pieces, that's pretty intense. So it's something to think about. Somebody that's thinking in their teens that they want to join the police force, you really need to watch. And social media, not that I want to take up too much of your time, but even what you post on social media, I tell my kids all the time, that can come back to haunt you later as well.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yes. And that's, and that's part of the background process is we'll have sign into Instagram, sign into Facebook, sign into, all these other different ones that are out there, some of which I don't even know anything about, but I can tell you our staff does, and, they'll have them sign in and they'll look at those things and ensure that the behavior is something that we would be comfortable just having displayed. And, that's just an important factor for us.
I appreciate it. So, well, anything else, Chief, before we part for the month of February that you can think of?
As always, I really appreciate what you're doing here with this. It's a great opportunity to chat with the members of the community. I know folks that watch this on a monthly basis, and I really appreciate that. And obviously, if anyone has any questions, feel free to email them in, and we'll stack them up and answer them next time. If it's something pressing, I'll respond back. But police@baldwinsville.org. That's the department email that, quite frankly, comes right to me anyway. Again, police@baldwinsville.org. And we'll get those and we'll bring them up if need be.
Perfect. So, well, thank you for your time again. And I look forward to our talk and not seeing another police officer at my door between now and the first Monday of March.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
All right, thanks. Bye.